do with money, and it's a truism in the Empire that a Cayl warrior would never buy a drink in a bar if he could pay more at the bar next door. So why didn't all of those defeated aliens get together and use the money to build fleets or hire mercenaries to win back their independence? And kill the goose that lays the golden eggs? It didn't take long for any of the species the Cayl fought to realize it was more profitable to surrender and become part of the Empire. Once the word got out, most of them only put up a token show of fighting to satisfy honor on both sides. Well, if that's the case, I guess it makes sense that those species would be shopping for a new protector. But what made the Cayl finally quit the game? Brawn drain, Libby replied. Although military training is part of their culture, most of the Cayl would rather spend their time doing scientific research than babysitting an empire, which is entirely understandable. The Cayl have built a unique society in many ways, but they've grown tired of always being the adult in the room. So that's it? They packed their bags and walked away from their own empire? The member species needed time to decide on an alternative, so they took up a collection to hire the Cayl war fleets and garrisons to extend their stay. It's actually the best bit of business to come the Cayl's way in eons, but the Emperor insisted on setting a departure date that's fast approaching. It also means that we should have some motivated buyers on our hands. So you're setting up a temporary tunnel and inviting representatives from all of those species to visit Union Station in order to wow them with what they'll get if they join up, Kelly summarized. Yes, though in practice there's no one-size-fits-all sales pitch, Libby explained. For example, the Verlocs signed up so they could scale back their military spending, while the Vergalians were more interested in freeing up resources to extend their reach outside of the tunnel network. In truth, accepting the Vergalians was a bit of an experiment that we're still assessing. How about the Hortons? The Hortons joined for the Strx net, which is to say, they had run out of bandwidth for some of the massive multi-user games they play. The Drazens joined because they were allies with the Hortons back then and they were impressed by the food courts on our stations. Both the Granuthians and the Dolniks joined for expanded market opportunities. And Chert, as you know, are refugees. Can you give some examples I'd recognize of the species that turned you down? Although we enforce very few laws related to commercial transactions, the Sharf didn't like the fact that we regulate the new and used spaceship dealerships on the stations. Before Griff and the others introduced that law, the station bots spent half their time out on search and rescue missions for careless shoppers who blew all of their money on a lemon and couldn't afford to pay for a tow to save their lives. We even offered the Sharf an exemption if they would just pay for search and rescue on their own ship sales, but their dealership lobby was too powerful. How about the Farlings? I don't think they believe we have anything to offer them, and they subscribe to the thesis that we favor humanoid species, despite all of the evidence to the contrary. They also nurse a grudge against the first-generation Strx for bringing an end to the Farling military expansion phase a long time ago, even before we exiled the Brupt for attacking our member species. Kelly continued to run through the other aliens she'd dealt with on a day-to-day basis, excusing her curiosity as being educational for her upcoming role as the open house hostess. What did you offer the Frunge and the Gem? The Frunge were won over by our willingness to re-engineer space for them on the stations. It's not obvious when you visit, but between the height of some of their ancestral trees and the depth of the root structures, we had to take out a floor and give them a double deck. And the Gem joined because we were willing to accept them at a time when all of the other species shunned them for being clones. So, if 5 species from the Cayl Empire end up sending representatives, it could take 10 different reasons to bring them all on board, Kelly mused. Still, if they're willing to come all the way here, they must be pretty interested. We aren't their only option, and it's not every day that an intact empire comes on the galactic market. They'll want to shop us against the alternatives, and there will certainly be a faction that will promote forming a confederation rather than finding a new protector. What alternatives? One of the off-tunnel species like the Sharf or the Farlings? The galaxy is much larger than the systems on our tunnel network and their immediate neighbors, Libby reminded her.